What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars walks onto a morning show expecting softball questions and instead gets confronted with the hard truths he has been avoiding for years? The tension in the studio was immediate. The clash was explosive, and what unfolded became one of the most shocking moments in morning television history. Before we get into it, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below, telling me whose side you are on in this whole situation. The cameras were rolling live as Will Smith settled into the chair across from Michael Strahan on the Good Morning America set. The audience was buzzing with excitement, phones out, ready to capture what they assumed would be another charming interview with the beloved actor. Will flashed his signature smile, that effortless charisma that had carried him through decades in the spotlight. But Strahan was not returning the energy. His expression was serious, focused, and there was something in his eyes that suggested this interview was going to go differently than anyone expected. "Will, thanks for being here," Strahan began, his voice steady but lacking the usual warmth that characterized his interviews. "Happy to be here, man. Always good to see you," Will responded, leaning back casually. "I want to start by addressing something that I think a lot of people have been waiting to hear you talk about honestly," Strahan said, cutting straight to it. "Your public image has always been about being this positive, uplifting figure, the guy who can do no wrong. But over the past few years, we have seen cracks in that image. We have seen moments that made people question who you really are behind all the charm." Will's smile faltered slightly. "I mean, I am human, Michael. I have never claimed to be perfect." "No one is asking for perfect," Strahan countered, leaning forward. "But there is a difference between being imperfect and being inauthentic. And I think that is what people are struggling with. The Will Smith we see in interviews, on social media, in your carefully curated public appearances. Sometimes it feels like a performance. Like we are watching a character you created rather than the real person." The studio went quiet. You could feel the shift in energy. This was not the playful banter audiences were used to. This was a confrontation, and Will knew it. "That is a pretty bold accusation," Will said, his tone cooling. "You are saying I am fake. I am saying that you have built a brand around being relatable, being real, being the everyman who made it big," Strahan said without backing down. "But when things get difficult, when you face real criticism, you retreat behind that brand instead of actually being vulnerable. You give us rehearsed answers, calculated responses, people can see through it." Will shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. "So what do you want from me, Michael? You want me to break down on camera? You want me to give you some raw, unfiltered confession so you can have a viral moment?" "I want you to be honest," Strahan said simply. "Not for me, not for the cameras, but because I think you owe it to yourself. You talk about growth, about learning, about evolution, but growth requires honesty, and I have not seen that from you. You do not know what I have been through," Will shot back, his voice rising slightly. "You do not know the work I have put in behind the scenes, the conversations I have had, the therapy, the reflection. Just because I am not broadcasting every moment of my struggle does not mean it is not real. Then why does it feel like everything you do is still calculated for public consumption?" Strahan pressed. "Every apology, every statement, every interview, it all feels like it went through a team of publicists first. Where is the Will Smith who is not worried about protecting his image?" "My image is my livelihood," Will said, his frustration evident now. "It is easy for you to sit there and ask me to be reckless with it. But you are not the one who has spent 30 years building something. You are not the one who has a family depending on that image, a legacy tied to it. And that is exactly the problem," Strahan said, not letting up. "You are so obsessed with protecting the image that you have lost touch with the person underneath it. And the irony is, people would respect you more if you just dropped the act." Will stared at him, the tension between them thick enough to cut. "You think you have me all figured out, huh?" "I think you are scared," Strahan said bluntly. "I think you are terrified of being seen as anything less than perfect, anything less than the hero people want you to be. And that fear is making you smaller, not bigger. You do not get to psychoanalyze me on live television," Will said sharply. "You do not get to sit there and reduce everything I am to some simplistic narrative about fear and image. Then give me something real," Strahan challenged. "Stop deflecting. Stop performing. Just talk to me like a human being, instead of like someone protecting a brand." Will went silent for a moment, his expression hard. When he spoke again, his voice was low and controlled. "You want real? Here is real. I am tired. I am tired of people like you thinking you have the right to demand pieces of me just because I am famous. I am tired of every mistake being dissected, every choice being questioned, every moment of my life being treated like public property." "Then why stay in the spotlight?" Strahan asked. "If it is so exhausting, if it is so invasive, why not step back?" "Because this is who I am," Will said. "This is what I do. And I am not going to let people like you bully me into hiding just because you think I am not being authentic enough." "No one is bullying you," Strahan said firmly. "I am asking you to be accountable. There is a difference." "Accountable for what exactly?" Will demanded. "For being human, for making mistakes. I have apologized. I have acknowledged my failures. What more do you want? I want to know if you actually understand what you did wrong, Strahan said, his voice cutting through the tension. Or, if you are just sorry, you got caught, sorry about the consequences. Will's eyes flashed with anger. Now you are crossing a line. Am I? Strahan asked, unflinching. Because from where I am sitting, it looks like you have been dodging real accountability since the beginning. You give these vague statements about growth and learning, but you never actually get specific. You never actually confront the real issues. I do not owe you specifics, Will said coldly. I do not owe any of you a detailed breakdown of my personal journey. You are right, you do not, Strahan agreed. But then do not come on shows like this and pretend like you are being open and vulnerable when you are really just doing damage control. The audience was completely silent now, captivated and uncomfortable in equal measure. This had gone far beyond a typical celebrity interview. This was personal, raw, and escalating with every exchange. You know what your problem is, Michael? Will said, his voice tight with barely contained frustration. You think being brutal is the same thing as being honest. You think tearing someone down is the same thing as holding them accountable. And you think charm is the same thing as depth. Strahan fired back. You think as long as you keep smiling, keep being likable, people will forget about the substance. Will stood up suddenly, his hands raised. I am done with this. We are live, Strahan reminded him calmly. I do not care, Will said, his voice sharp. This is not an interview. This is an ambush. Sit down, Will, Strahan said, his voice calm but commanding. If you walk off this set right now, you are proving every single thing I just said about you. You are proving that you cannot handle real confrontation without retreating behind your walls. Will stood there, frozen between the impulse to leave and the challenge Strahan had just laid at his feet. The cameras captured every second of his internal struggle, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. Finally, slowly, he sat back down. But the energy had shifted completely. The charm was gone. What remained was something raw and defensive. Fine, Will said through gritted teeth. Let us do this. Let us have the conversation you want to have. I do not want to have any particular conversation, Strahan said. I want to have an honest one. That is all I have wanted from the beginning. Then ask me honest questions instead of making accusations disguised as questions, Will challenged. All right, Strahan said, accepting the challenge. When things fell apart for you publicly, when you faced the biggest crisis of your career, your first instinct was not to face it head-on. Your first instinct was to disappear, to release a video statement, to control the narrative from a distance. Why? Will exhaled sharply. Because I was processing, because I was dealing with my own shame and confusion, and I needed time before I could talk about it publicly. Or because you needed time to figure out how to spin it, Strahan suggested. That is not fair, Will said, his voice rising again. You are twisting everything I say into the worst possible interpretation. I am asking you to consider that maybe your perspective on your own actions is not as clear as you think it is, Strahan said. You keep talking about processing and growth, but from the outside, it looks like avoidance and image management. So nothing I do will ever be good enough for you, Will said bitterly. I apologize, you say it is not sincere. I take time away. You say I am avoiding. I come back and try to move forward. You say I am pretending nothing happened. There is no winning with people like you. People like me, Strahan repeated. You mean people who expect basic accountability from public figures. People who do not think fame should be a shield against consequences. People who act like they have never made mistakes, Will shot back. People who get to sit in judgment and act morally superior without ever having to face the same level of scrutiny. I have made plenty of mistakes, Strahan said evenly. The difference is, I own them without needing a PR strategy first. It is easy to own mistakes when you are not under a microscope every single second of your life, Will argued. When you do not have millions of people dissecting every word you say, every move you make. Then why did you choose this life? Strahan asked again, circling back. No one forced you into stardom. You pursued it, you cultivated it, you benefited from it enormously. You cannot take all the rewards and then complain about the accountability that comes with it. I am not complaining about accountability, Will insisted. I am complaining about people who confuse cruelty with accountability. There is a difference between holding someone responsible and trying to destroy them. No one is trying to destroy you, Strahan said firmly. You are still one of the biggest stars in the world. You still have opportunities most people can only dream of. What you are experiencing is not destruction, it is criticism. And if you cannot tell the difference, that is a problem. Will leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped together. For a moment, he said nothing, just stared at the floor. When he looked back up at Strahan, there was something different in his eyes. Not quite vulnerability, but something closer to it than anything he had shown so far. You think this is easy for me? He asked quietly. You think I do not lie awake at night replaying everything, wishing I could go back and change it? I do not know, Strahan said honestly. That is the whole point. I do not know what you actually feel because you never let anyone see it. All we get are carefully worded statements and controlled appearances. We never get you. Maybe there is nothing deeper to get. Will said, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. Maybe the person you think I am hiding does not actually exist. Maybe what you see is what you get. I do not believe that, Strahan said. I think you are one of the most talented, intelligent, charismatic people in the industry. And I think you are wasting that by playing it safe, by always trying to be palatable to everyone. You have more to offer than just charm. So what do you want from me? Will asked, genuinely seeming to want an answer. What would make you believe I am being real? Stop trying to control how people see you, Strahan said. Stop crafting every response to minimize damage. Stop treating every interaction like a chess game where you are always thinking 3 moves ahead. Just exist. Just be a person who made mistakes and is trying to figure it out, instead of a brand trying to recover. That is easy to say, Will said, but you are not the one who has to live with the consequences if I get it wrong. What consequences? Strahan pressed. What are you so afraid is going to happen if you stop performing? Will was quiet for a long moment. That people will realize I am not special. That everything I built was just smoke and mirrors. That I am not actually the person I spent decades convincing everyone I was. The admission hung in the air between them. It was the most honest thing Will had said all interview, and everyone watching could feel it. See, that is what I am talking about, Strahan said, his voice softer now but still firm. That right there, that is real. Why is it so hard for you to lead with that instead of hiding behind the performance? Because it is terrifying, Will said simply. Because once you show people the cracks, they do not forget. They do not let you go back to being who you were before. Maybe you are not supposed to go back, Strahan suggested. Maybe you are supposed to move forward as someone different, someone more honest. And lose everything I built in the process. Will asked, or gain something more valuable, Strahan countered. Respect, trust, genuine connection with people, instead of just admiration from a distance. Will laughed, but there was no humor in it. You make it sound so simple. It is not simple, Strahan acknowledged. But it is necessary. You cannot keep living in this limbo where you are trying to be everything to everyone. At some point, you have to choose authenticity over image. Easy for you to say, Will muttered. It is not easy for anyone to say, Strahan said. But some of us say it anyway because it is important. Because legacy is not just about how many movies you made or how famous you were. It is about what you stood for, what you actually contributed beyond entertainment. And you think I have not contributed anything? Will asked, defensive again. I think you have contributed a lot, Strahan said, but I also think you are at a crossroads where you can either keep coasting on your past success and your charm, or you can actually evolve into something more meaningful. And I do not think you can do the second thing while still clinging to the image you built in the first place. So I have to destroy who I was to become who I could be, Will said. That is what you are asking. I am asking you to let go of who you pretended to be so you can become who you actually are, Strahan clarified. There is a difference. Will rubbed his face with both hands, exhaustion evident in every movement. This is not what I signed up for today. I know, Strahan said, but maybe it is what you needed. Maybe, Will conceded, though he did not sound convinced. Or maybe this is just you grandstanding, making yourself look good by tearing me down on live television. If that is what you think this is, then you are still not getting it, Strahan said, a hint of frustration returning to his voice. I am not trying to tear you down. I am trying to wake you up. To what? Will asked. To the fact that you are wasting your potential, Strahan said bluntly. You are one of the most talented people in this industry, and you are squandering it by playing it safe, by always trying to protect your image instead of actually using your platform for something meaningful. I have used my platform for meaningful things, Will argued. I have inspired millions of people. I have created opportunities for others. I have given back to communities. And all of that is great, Strahan said. But it is also surface level. It is the kind of thing any celebrity with money and influence can do. What I am talking about is deeper than that. I am talking about actually being vulnerable, actually taking risks, actually standing for something, even when it is uncomfortable. Like what? Will challenged. Give me an example. Like being honest about the cost of fame on your family, Strahan said without hesitation. Not the sanitized version you give in interviews where everything is a learning experience and everyone grows together. The real cost, the real damage, the real complexity of raising kids in the spotlight while trying to maintain your own identity. Will's expression hardened. My family is off limits. See, that is exactly what I mean, Strahan said, leaning back. You want to have it both ways. You want to share your family when it benefits your image, when it makes you look relatable and grounded. But the moment someone asks you to be real about the struggles, suddenly it is off limits. You cannot have it both ways. I can protect my family and still be authentic, Will insisted. Can you? Strahan asked, because from what I have seen, you use your family as a prop when it is convenient and hide behind them when things get difficult. That is not protection. That is manipulation. That is a disgusting thing to say, Will said, his voice going cold. It is an honest thing to say, Strahan countered, and the fact that you are reacting this way instead of actually addressing the point proves that I am right. You do not want honesty. You want compliance. I want respect, Will said sharply. I want to be treated like a human being instead of a punching bag for anyone who wants to make a name for themselves by taking shots at me. No one is taking shots at you, Strahan said, his patience clearly wearing thin. I am trying to have a real conversation with you, but you keep deflecting, keep getting defensive, keep treating this like an attack instead of an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Will demanded. To humiliate myself on live television, to give you sound bites that will be replayed for weeks. An opportunity to be real, Strahan said firmly. To show people that you are more than just a carefully constructed image. To actually connect with your audience on a human level instead of always performing for them. I connect with my audience just fine, Will said. No, you entertain your audience, Strahan corrected. There is a difference. Entertainment is one way. Connection is reciprocal. And you cannot have real connection when you are always holding people at arm's length. Will stood up again, but this time it was not in anger. It was something else. Exhaustion maybe, defeat. He paced a few steps, ran his hand over his head, then turned back to Strahan. You want to know the truth? He asked, his voice quieter now but intense. The truth is that I do not know how to be the person you are asking me to be. I have been performing for so long that I do not even know where the performance ends and the real person begins. I built this image when I was a kid trying to survive in this industry, and it worked. It got me everything I have. And now you are asking me to just tear it all down and start over, and I do not know if I can do that. The studio was completely silent. Even Strahan seemed taken aback by the rawness of the admission. I do not know if there is anything underneath all of this, Will continued, gesturing to himself. I do not know if I am actually deep or interesting or authentic. Maybe I am just good at pretending to be those things. Maybe that is all I have ever been. I do not believe that, Strahan said quietly, but I understand why you might feel that way. Do you? Will asked, a bitter edge to his voice. Because you seem pretty confident about who I should be and what I should do. You seem pretty sure that there is some better version of me just waiting to emerge if I would just stop being so fake. But what if you are wrong? What if this is it? Then at least you would know, Strahan said. At least you would have tried. At least you would not spend the rest of your life wondering what might have happened if you had been brave enough to be vulnerable. Brave enough, Will repeated. You think I am a coward. I think you are scared, Strahan said. And I think that fear has been controlling you for a long time. But I also think you are capable of more than you are giving yourself credit for. Based on what? Will asked. You do not know me. You do not know what I am capable of. I know what I have seen, Strahan said. I have seen glimpses of something real in you. Moments where the mask slips and you let people see who you actually are. And those moments are always more compelling than anything you do when you are performing. Will laughed, shaking his head. You make it sound so easy. Just be human. Just be real. Like that is not the most terrifying thing in the world for someone in my position. Why is it terrifying? Strahan asked. Because once people see who you really are, they cannot unsee it. Will said, once you show them your weaknesses, your insecurities, your failures, that becomes your identity. You do not get to be the hero anymore. You become just another flawed person trying to figure it out. And what is wrong with that? Strahan asked. Why is being a flawed person trying to figure it out worse than being a perfect image that no one actually believes in? Because people need heroes, Will said. They need someone to look up to, someone who seems like they have it all figured out. The point is truth, Strahan said. The point is connection. The point is showing people that they are not alone in their struggles because even someone as successful as you has the same doubts and fears and insecurities. And then what? Will asked. Then I am just another person. Then, I am not special anymore. You were never special because you pretended to be perfect, Strahan said. You were special because of your talent, your work ethic, your intelligence. Those things do not go away just because you admit you are human. Will was quiet for a long moment, staring at Strahan. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I do not know if I can do what you are asking. I am not asking you to do anything, Strahan said. I am just pointing out that you have a choice. You can keep doing what you have always done, keep protecting the image, keep performing, or you can take a risk and try something different. Will sat back down, his shoulders slumped. The fight had gone out of him. He looked tired, vulnerable, more human than he had appeared all interview. This is not how I thought this morning would go, he said with a weak smile. Me neither, Strahan admitted, but maybe it needed to go this way. Maybe, Will said, or maybe you just ambushed me on live television and now we are both going to regret it. I do not regret it, Strahan said firmly. I think this is the most honest conversation you have had publicly in years. Will nodded slowly, processing. The tension between them had shifted into something less adversarial and more contemplative. So what now? Will asked. We acknowledge that we had a difficult conversation, Strahan said. We do not have to pretend anything. We can just be honest about what happened here. Honest, Will repeated, almost testing the word. That is going to take some getting used to. Will stood up one final time, and this time there was no anger, no defensiveness. He extended his hand to Strahan. I appreciate what you are trying to do, even if I am not sure I agree with how you did it. Strahan stood and shook his hand. I hope you actually consider what we talked about instead of just writing it off as an ambush. I will consider it, Will said. I cannot promise anything more than that. But as Will turned to leave the set, Strahan called out one more time. Will, one more thing. Will turned back, exhaustion evident on his face. Yeah, stop running from yourself, Strahan said. You are not running from criticism or consequences. You are running from the person you are afraid you might be. And until you stop running and actually face that person, you are never going to find peace. Will stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without another word, he walked off the set, leaving Strahan standing alone as the cameras continued to roll. The production crew scrambled, unsure whether to cut to commercial or keep rolling. Strahan looked directly into the camera, his expression serious. That was not easy for anyone, he said to the viewers, but sometimes the most important conversations are the hardest ones to have. The show cut to commercial, but everyone knew that what had just happened would be replayed, analyzed, and debated for days to come. It was not just an interview gone wrong. It was a moment that exposed the tension between image and authenticity, between who we pretend to be and who we actually are. If you made it this far, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, telling me, do you think Michael Strahan crossed the line, or did Will Smith need to hear exactly what was said? Let me know your thoughts.